overcompensation between the teams, although Sam Presti wanted the 2023 pick unprotected. He wanted the protecteds removed, and also he wanted a 2025 pick. But the real reason for it was that he weren't going to do that for a rental, and Gallinari did not want to. Basically, he wanted an extension that was going to take him past 2021, and the Heat were just not willing to do that, and so they balked at it. So I like the moves. I give the Heat an A for today. What say you?
Honestly, the overall grade is hard to figure out, but there's no denying the logic in this trade.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a Miami Heat and NBA podcast from Ethan Skolnick with Alphonse Sidney, a.k.a. Alf954. Brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Welcome to the latest episode of the 5 on the Floor podcast on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I'm Ethan Skolnick. Today's episode sponsored in part by the Seltzer-Mayberg Law Firm. You can find them at onecalllegal.com. That's O-N-E, calllegal.com. They'll handle cases from all over the state, but they're based in North Miami. They handle immigration, also personal injury, slip and fall, traffic tickets. They do sports law. They do just about everything, like I said, right there in an office right off of I-95, just south of the Golden Glade. So the Seltzer-Mayberg Law Firm can be found at that's O-N-E, calllegal.com. All right, Ethan Skolnick back here with Alex Toledo. Apologize for some audio stuff that we've had, moving around different equipment, that kind of stuff, and also apologize for my voice. Although I am only the second sickest person now in the 5 on the Floor podcast team, Alphonse Sidney was incapable of doing this episode because he can't get out of bed. So obviously he needs a little bit more of that Riley culture. But I am here with Alex, and we're just going to do this one quickly. We've got about 6 or 7 episodes planned based on what happened here over the past couple days. But today I just want to strictly, hold to what the Heat did, what the Heat didn't do, whether we like it, and what we think a lineup might look like now. So that's a lot, but it's a lot less than actually we've got on the list here. So I will start here with you, Alex, because you didn't agree with me. I have posted a bunch of stuff today. I really like what the Heat did. I think it could have been better if they got Gallinari, but I like what they did just in a vacuum, okay? Even not getting Gallinari, making the trade, which we can now say, we alluded to this. I also want to give our Greg Sylvander credit. He was the first, okay, the first. Nobody else in December was talking about Andre Iguodala to the Heat. Also, he and Nekias had it in a column that they wrote earlier this week that it could be Iguodala and Crowder for Justise, and maybe you get rid of Dion's contract. That was pretty damn close because they ended up sending James Johnson also in the deal and getting Solomon Hill back. So basically, it's what Greg said. But I said basically that I loved what the Heat did today because it accomplished 3 things. It makes them somewhat stronger now because they're going to get basically 2 and maybe a quarter rotation players in the deal for 3 guys that were basically between them half a rotation player and James Johnson, since Dion and Justise were not playing for different reasons. And then it also gives them additional flexibility in 2020, which is a very weak class, but also very few teams have money. I think there's 5 or 6 teams that have money led by Atlanta. So it's low supply, but it's also low demand. So the Heat might be able to strike or use that cap space to absorb contracts, take on a player that somebody else doesn't want, maybe for 1 year. So I think it's a major advantage for them. And then 2021, they preserved the cap space because basically the reason that the Gallinari deal broke down, I heard it was not overcompensation between the teams, although Sam Presti wanted the 2023 pick unprotected. He wanted the protecteds removed, and also he wanted a 2025 pick. But the real reason for it was that he weren't going to do that for a rental, and Gallinari did not want to. Basically, he wanted an extension that was going to take him past 2021, and the Heat were just not willing to do that, and so they balked at it. So I like the moves. I give the Heat an A for today. What say you?
Honestly, the overall grade is hard to figure out, but there's no denying the logic in this trade. The thing that I disagreed on with you, that we were talking in the chat, and you mentioned it as a home run. So that's a small thing. We could be just talking about like the way that we describe the trade. I do agree that there's a lot of logic to it, right? They found a pretty cheap way to add 3 guys who are good at defense, and one who was a Finals MVP. Obviously, that was 5 years ago. So I don't want people to think that they're getting the Iguodala who won Finals MVP. They're getting the Iguodala who's a very good defender still, and who kind of gives you a facsimile of what Justise Winslow does, and who's someone who has actually been there. So, yeah, it makes a lot of sense, right? And like I said, they added 3 guys who are good at defense, which is somewhere they've been struggling. So you added bodies, right? You got rid of guys who were giving you trouble and kind of whose roles were a little bit mixed up. There was a lot of baggage at this point with all 3 of them. So logically, it really does make a lot of sense. And that's not even including everything you talked about with the cap flexibility, which is probably an even bigger part of this, right? Because it's like you're going to be able to make moves this summer if you want to on a short-term deal with maybe Danilo Gallinari, but
right.
2021 becomes easier to maneuver through. So there's a lot of logic to it. At the same time, it's like if we would have never heard about the Gallinari stuff, I would have felt slightly better about this trade. But still, like, I was of the camp that to not give up Justise if it's not for somebody of that caliber. Like, I was already not sure about giving up Justise for somebody of that caliber of Gallinari and Aldridge and DeRozan, right? I'm not even talking about an Iguodala. So that's why I was like pretty much disappointed with it, right? That's because of my expectations with what they could get with Justise Winslow. But obviously, I think the thing to be said here is they kind of sold Justise at one of the lowest points of his career. Not the lowest, because you've already seen him be good. So there's more to it than maybe if you tried to trade him 2 years ago. But yeah, that I think they could have gotten a little bit more, and a little bit more would have been got the new.
Well, look, there's a couple things on this. One, I mean, I think it is the lowest point of Justice's value because I think they were done, and I've alluded to that on various podcasts. They got very frustrated with him, you know. And I said on the previous pod that, you know, I heard from not 1, not 2, not 3, to use Heat parlance, several Heat executives were people inside the org, not just executives but staffers. Who basically said they were frustrated Justise wouldn't play when he wasn't 100%. And I think if you look right now at what's happened since the summer, Pat Riley said, I let the culture slip. I'm going to tighten the culture. Who's gone? Okay. Hassan Whiteside, who only cared about his numbers. James Johnson, who came to camp in shape that, or at least at a weight that Pat Riley was not comfortable with. Dion Waiters, who had numerous issues that the team covered up until they couldn't cover them up anymore. And Justise Winslow, who I heard was not real happy with the idea of coming off the bench, but really it was mostly about, you know, the Heat not feeling he would play when he was hurt. So I never thought Justise would be one of the guys who kind of got on the wrong side of the culture line. The other 3 I thought were a little more possible in that regard, particularly Dion and Hassan, obviously. But 4 guys that didn't conform to the culture are gone. I mean, Pat basically laid down the law, and there's no sentimentality about it. Like, where this organization got in trouble in 16-17 was Pat got, and I'm going to use a word he probably got, like, he got soft for him. You know, he got soft because he was, I've said this so many times, but the Big 3 era, like, he wanted the barbecues. He wanted everybody to stay forever with their families and all that, and he got sentimental, and everybody left unhappy, like, down to, like, the 10th man of that team. And so there was something about restoring goodwill with players around the league after the way that all of that ended. And I think Pat's done a lot to do that with the former players. The way Bosh has been brought back, Ray Allen comes to the games now. You know, I mean, I think there's, you know, Shane Batty is in the organization. Like, I mean, I think there's a lot of fence mending that's been done. You know, to make that, Dwayne, of course, is the number 1 fence mending thing, right? But and even LeBron says really nice things about the organization. He said something today, okay, about, you know, Iguodala is going to a championship organization. So I think a lot of that has been repaired. But the biggest thing that, you know, that needed to happen was that he needed to show he would commit to players. And he just committed to the wrong ones for too long. But they're all gone. They're all gone, Alex. Like, he took care of the whole thing. Like, it's done. Now, we can say they had to give up Justise Winslow to do it, right? They had to stretch Ryan Anderson, like pick up Ryan Anderson and stretch him to do it. They had to package a first-round pick basically to get rid of Whiteside if you look at the totality of that trade. But they did it. So can we be – I guess, to me, addition by subtraction is a big thing here. Can we be happy about that?
Yeah, I think if you're talking about just a big picture, there's no way you can't be happy, right? Like, first of all, they got Dwayne Wade back. Everything finished good with him. It's, you know, extremely important. Like, that could have ended all types of ways, right? We have no idea. But other than that, they got rid of everybody we thought they were going to have a lot of trouble getting rid of. And they did have a lot of trouble getting rid of these guys, right? Let's not overlook it, right? But they got rid of Hassan, who was, let's not even include him in the group with, Dion and JJ and Tyler Johnson, because Hassan was obviously better than those guys when he was at his peak. But they got rid of all of those guys, right? They got rid of Magruder, all these names that we considered to be mediocre, right? Like, they're all gone, right? Magruder didn't have the bad contract, so he doesn't belong there. But at the same time, it's like they turned all of that, what they had before that looked so mediocre, into this, which is like, okay, they're going to be really good now in the short term when maybe they're not finals good, but they're competing with the best in the conference. Not only that, you've got flexibility in the short term and the long term, and you have legitimately good young guys to be excited about, and multiple of them. And guys who are giving you first-round pick value and even higher than that. Like, Bam is an all-star in his third year. He's 22. He's just figuring out his game. Hero is already considered untouchable by the team at 19. You're excited about 24-year-old men. Like, there's a lot to be happy about. So, big picture, there's no denying it. I think we only.
Well, they traded Magruder for none, basically. Like, I mean, you talk about. I mean, we don't even talk about that one.
Yep.
They traded Magruder for none, and the thing about it is, so everybody's like, well, okay, Justise, you could have had six picks from Boston, and you could have had this player or that player. Although, actually, if you look at Justice's production, even with the missed season this year, he was drafted about where he should have been drafted. I think 6 of the 9 guys drafted ahead of him have already been on, a second team. Most of them because they've been unproductive. Like, Karl-Anthony Towns, obviously, is the guy who stands out. But also, the Heat flipped Josh Richardson, who was the 40th pick for Jimmy Butler. So I mean, I think they've so outdone themselves in terms of getting value for other players, getting Duncan Robinson for nothing, getting none for nothing except the Magruder roster spot. Getting Bam at where they got Bam at 13, getting Hero at 14, getting Hero at 13. They've done so well in those areas that it doesn't – what's happened in terms of Justise, so you sold low on Justise. It's, to me, it's offset by everything else, Alex. Like, is it ideal? No. Did I want Justise to become something better here? To use a Miami Heat beat term? Yes. Could you have had Devin Booker? Of course. Okay. But I think when you look at the totality of it, you put yourselves in good position. All right. After the break, I want to get to what this team looks like now. Okay. And I got one more question for you on today, which is, would you have extended Danilo Gallinari to get that deal done? But today's episode sponsored in part as well by BetDSI.com. Go to BetDSI.com and use the promo code 5101. That's FIV101. Football is over, but you can still bet basketball. You can bet hockey. We've got spring training starting up, so get in on the futures, all those numbers. And if you use 5101, you will get a bonus, which obviously when you're gambling, some things can go wrong, so you want to have a little bit more money to play with. So use the promo code. You got to enter it when you start, 5101. Again, that's FIVE 101. All right, back here on 5 on the floor, Ethan Skolnick with Alex Toledo. Alphonse Sidney not joining us because he doesn't fit the culture. He does not play hurt. But everybody gets your flu shots. Go out and do that. We've got a little bit of news before we get to the next part of this podcast, Alex. Dion Waiters is not being kept by the Memphis Grizzlies. Shocker. He is being cut loose, and so he will be free to sign with any team, I believe. And I would like to see him on the Lakers. I think Clutch should get another one there. I want to see those KCP Dion Waiters lineups together with LeBron. I want to see Dion calling for the ball, LeBron not passing to him like I used to see up in Cleveland for those 2 months. Is that the perfect landing spot for Dion, you think?
Honestly, I can't think of a better one just off the top of my head. Like, we got to see that on the national stage. Please, NBA. If you're going to rig anything, rig Dion to the Lakers, all right? No, but seriously, you got to question Alf's. Does he want it? Does he want to be here? We might have to send him to
he's over here. He doesn't have 5 on the floor culture. I think we'll have to. I mean, the problem is I've drafted too many guys from Heat Beat. And so I'm going to have to draft from Locked On, I think, from now on, because
it's a crapshoot.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you get an Alex, and sometimes you get an Alex. You don't know what's going to happen. All right, let's get to two more things here. Maybe. Yeah, that's true. All right, let's get to we'll get to bigger percentage. All right, let's get to the next part of this. We got 2 more things to do. Danilo Gallinari. Now, I texted a couple agents today. I said, if you were his agent, would you take just a 1-year extension beyond this? Right? So take yourself into 2021. And they said they would, because basically they don't think on the open market this year that he's going to make more than $18 million, which was the number. Because there were only, until the Heat opened it up today, as coming into there were only like 5 or 6 teams with any space. And only Atlanta has significant space. And as the agent said to me, Atlanta's not going to give him $18 million a year. So the other question, Danilo wanted 3 years. He wanted basically this year plus 2 that would take him past 2021. Would you have been comfortable? The Heat extended Iguodala, but they only extended him into 2021, not past it. Would you have been comfortable giving? Are they going to regret not extending Danilo past 2021 so that they could get him here?
I think if anything, Danilo and his team are going to regret not taking on the 2-year extension with a 3rd year partially guaranteed. Because at this point, it's like, what are you going to get this summer, right? Who are the teams with space? They're all teams that are losing, and one of them just took on Andre Drummond today. So, you think they're going to trade? Obviously, they didn't have to give up much to get Drummond, but you think they're going to trade him to not sign him this summer? So I think, what are you really holding out for? Unless it's 2021, or you really think that you have an offer for like a 4-year deal, then I completely understand that. But if you're just going to test out the market and you don't know anything ahead of time, I really don't understand it. Especially you're getting at least a partial guarantee in the 3rd year. That's just gravy because he knows he would get signed if he were to get dropped, right? He's
right.
not. I think his camp, and obviously I'm not an agent, so I'm not going to act like I know more than them. But it confuses me because he could have gotten the 2 years guaranteed on a good team in a good situation where he wouldn't have to be dependent on to be really their best scorer, best shooter. They already have a good offense, and he can miss games. There's no pressure on him. And I think he could have been in Miami, and now you don't know where you're gonna go unless, like I said, they do have a 4-year offer. Other than that, it doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't.
Well, the other thing that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and maybe I'm missing something, because OKC fans seem to be out there saying that they were fine with Presti staying put. What was the advantage for Oklahoma City for not making a deal? I don't really get it. He's a free agent at the end of the year, right? You're not keeping him, most likely.
I mean, I don't know. What if you could keep him? What if you're the team that just gives him a 4-year deal at a solid number and he's just tradable for the next few years because any team would want to trade for him? And I think they're a 7 seed in the West, almost a lock for it at this point, at least a 7. Right. So I think if they were kind of in the race for the 8th, along with the Grizzlies and the Spurs, Pelicans, etc., it would have been a lot easier for them to sell. But the team is actually good. So I get why they were holding out, and I get why they wanted the 2025 first. It's only good business from Presti, and we know he's good at making trades, except the James Harden one. But
well, that wasn't really. I mean, what was he going to do, right? What was he going to do with the James Harden one?
Trade Serge Ibaka.
Well, the trade wasn't good.
If you have to.
Well, no. The trade. Oh no, I understand. Well, they picked Ibaka over him. I get it, but then ultimately it came down to the owner and $3 million. I mean, that's what it came down to. I mean, you have one of the richest men in the country who didn't want to spend $3 million.
That was the first strike. Little did we know that all 3 of them would be gone, and that they wouldn't win anything. What a story!
It's incredible that they never won anything. That has to be the most. There are other teams that should have won, like the Suns, the Nash teams that should have won, but they've got to be the most talented team. And Portland probably should have won.
Maybe even more than those teams from the 90s. Yeah. the
Sacramento
Jazz
should have won. A lot of those teams should have won, but the team that had the most talent that didn't win was OKC. I love that because it's there's always that photo that goes around Twitter with the 3 of them. It's what do you say to this trio? If you find a better trio, and everybody's like Heat and 5, because that's basically what it was. And so it's one of those incredible trios that didn't work out. All right, next thing we're going to get to. Before we close, and again, we have other podcasts. We're going to get to other topics. Who starts? Does the starting lineup change? Because it was gonna if they got Gallinari, because he was going to replace Myers in the starting lineup. But now when Myers is back, again, he's not on the road trips. I'm not expecting to see him anytime soon. Does he start, or does Jay Crowder start?
Oh no, I don't think they're going to bench Myers for Jay Crowder. You go and look at Jay Crowder's numbers. He's been firmly a back-end rotation player by his production, by his efficiency, by everything. His defense has kind of just been okay. And obviously, the Grizzlies have been good. So you could say, well, at least he was contributing to a good team. But he was shooting 30% from 3. And, I was comparing Gallinari's defensive numbers to Crowder's, and they were neck and neck, Ethan. I don't think it's a big deal, but like Crowder, he's not expected to be a shutdown defender. Like they already have other good defenders. I think Iguodala is the one that needs to really be a very good defender and also be passable on offense. But Crowder, I think he's gravy at this point if he ends up being like a 34% 3-point shooter and is able to be like solid on defense. Because I think the Heat are really good at getting guys to be better on defense than they were in previous stops. And so I think it'll be a little bit easier on him to be a good 3-and-D guy here. They've
wanted him for a while. Like this is not a new target. And of course, there's a Dwayne relationship there too. It's interesting. I got to do a little explanation on this. Isn't there like some negative history between him and Jimmy? I know everybody makes the Marquette connection, but I
was trying to figure that out.
I thought there was something. Maybe I'm missing it. Maybe one of our listeners can get to it. I think
they've gotten into it like during games.
Right. Yeah, I just remember that it always surprised me because there are really 3 players of note that have come from that school in the last 20 years, and there are 2 of them, and so it was kind of surprising to me when I saw it.
Oh, look, you want to hear something? So yes. I just did a quick Google. Look at this headline: Dwayne Wade calls Jimmy Butler, Jay Crowder Twitter trash talk a little quote Marquette family affair.
Okay, so there it is. That's what it was.
Maybe they don't think it's that big of a deal. It's just competition bringing out trash talk. I'm sure that's what they're going to say about it because it's going to get asked.
Oh, of course it's going to get asked. But the reality is Jay Crowder fits here. Like his personality fits here. Like he'll fit right in. I think in losing James Johnson, Jay Crowder becomes the replacement for a little bit of that. The only reason I said that I thought there was a chance that Jay ends up in the starting lineup eventually, I don't think Iguodala will, by the way. Like what I was told about how they see Iguodala is that Duncan Robinson is going to start. They're not going to change anything there. But some of the problems we've talked about with Duncan late in games, there's going to be a lot of either offense, defense, or Andre is just going to play those minutes, depending on where they are in games.
I think it makes a lot of sense for him to come off the bench, especially since he hasn't played basketball since last June. Mm-hmm. And, an older guy, he's coming off of 5 straight finals trips, and he was putting in a lot of minutes and a lot of defensive minutes on the likes of LeBron, right? Like, he's got a run on it. So I like them bringing him off the bench. I think it's going to help solidify that bench unit with Goran and Hero. It should make it easier on Kelly as well because, and Derek Jones, right? Because you get another solid defender in there where JJ was kind of erratic. I think Iguodala is a little bit more stable on a night-to-night basis. But the other thing is, I don't know, man. I think, you basically get to keep everything going that you have going well for you in the starting lineup while also adding guys who can close for you. But do you want me to give you the background on this beef? Because it's pretty funny.
Give me the background of the beef.
Okay, basically it was from when Jimmy was on Minnesota. They were going back and forth for the Jazz. Rubio got into it with Teague, and then Jimmy tweeted something. He said, I haven't used Twitter in years. But yeah, Jeff, that's what I like to see. Rubio getting up quick for no reason because Rubio got up like he was going to do something to Jeff Teague. So Jimmy tweeted that, and he said, Jay, get away from my coach. You don't want no smoke either. And this was in March 2018. But then Jay Crowder quotes this and says, in all caps, because this is how Jay Crowder tweets if you don't already know. He says, I don't Twitter beef. I'll leave that to you. But you got my phone number and know my home address. The rest can be history. Some emojis, some exclamation points thrown around here. And then Dwayne Wade just quote tweeted and said, just a little Marquette family affair. With an
right, I remember. See, that's what I remember. Because I thought there was something. It's probably, like I said, it's probably total overreaction by everybody. And I'm sure they'll be fine. I don't think.
And the Celtics Bull series.
Well, right. I can tell you that folks around Jimmy were happy with the trades. So I don't think there's going to be any issue there. Obviously, Danilo would have taken this to another level, but I'm with the Heat.
So we know that Jimmy and Bam were happy that Derek Jones Jr. is still on the team, huh?
Yes, yeah. So that's the other thing that Leif and I, Greg Sylvander and I reported earlier today. The Heat basically assured Derek Jones Jr. he was not going to be moved. And I think if you know the relationship between Bam and DJJ, it's pretty much his closest friend on the team. It was pretty well known that Derek was not going to get traded. And not only that, but that they were making moves with the idea in mind that they would have the flexibility to re-sign Derek Jones Jr. And now they do. And, they'll have decisions. They'll have decisions to make on him and Goran and on Myers, but they can do something with Derrick Jones Jr. if they want to. This gives them options to decide who they want to keep. And that's why, like I said, I think this is a very good trade deadline for the Heat. Could have been better, yes, but I think if they make the move for Gallinari and extend him, and then he gets hurt again, then you've made a bad move. And so I don't. I'll say it a million times. This is not about getting a Danilo Gallinari. Ultimately, he's a really good player. This is about getting a Giannis, or I think we can throw this name in the mix now, and we'll close here, and Anthony Davis, because there's going to be, if things blow up with LA, and we don't know what's going to happen, and of course he's a Rich Paul client, which is not ideal.
And the Lakers have been the best team in the league besides the Milwaukee Bucks.
They have, but if it all blows up and say AD doesn't want to be there, and I think he will be. I honestly think this is wishful thinking. But the Heat will be one of the few teams with money, and maybe the only attractive one. So,
can I ask you a question before we go?
Get him in the room. That's all. What's that?
Yeah, of course. And they're always trying to get people in the room, and we already know they got cap space for the summer now. I think they're going to have about $27 million, and they can get a little bit more if they do some stuff with Kelly and Kizzy Okpala. But what I am going to ask you is, okay, so I'm going to set it up like this. Whereas I differ with you is that you kind of have this trade as an A, where I have it as maybe a B to B plus, considering all the other factors, because I think they kind of ended up bungling Justice potential after we saw how good he could have been. It's not a big difference, I think, because I mostly agree that it makes a lot of sense for the big picture of this team. But I would have really liked the combo of Gallinari and Iguodala, because he would have gotten the second scorer as well as a great defender. And also they played together in Denver. So what I'm concerned about with your opinion is, would your grade not have changed with the Gallinari acquiring?
No. I think my grade. I think my grade on it. Again, I can't blame them for the Gallinari move not happening. I was fine with the compensation that they were throwing at them.
You don't think they could have jumped at the risk of taking 3 years and hoping and praying that he was tradable in the last season?
I don't know if you want to be in that position again. And not that he has any character marks against him, but he has injury marks against him. And I love it. I like him as a player. I would, you know what? It's crazy. And I'll have to find out what actually happened. I would have preferred him as a rental than to a 3-year guy.
I think the problem, because I was saying the same thing on Twitter, but the problem was I found out after that, even to get him as a rental, they would have still needed to include that 2025 first.
Right. But I still would have preferred that. I mean, the ideal scenario was add a year, make it 2021. The other two solutions to me were iffy, but I would have chosen the rental instead.
So you would have removed the protections and given the pick for a rental.
Right. I would have considered it. I don't know that I would have done it, but I would have considered it. The one thing I didn't want to do was go into 20. I don't. We've had the conversation about Drew Holiday and whether we want to do it. You want to do it for Gallinari?
I would have done Drew over Gallo, that's for sure. You already know my feelings on that. But I think it's a similar type of concept, right? It's a philosophy thing, whereas the Heat have been known to take these types of risks before. We thought all these guys would be untradeable, right? We can't make Drew tradable.
They can make anybody tradable, but Drew has tended to be. And I know he's missed some time, but has tended to be more healthy than Gallinari over the years, and so I would have said, and also. Drew fulfills a bigger need. He's a two-way player and a ball handler. I mean, Danilo's a really good scorer, shooter. As you said, if you get average defense out of him, you're pretty good with that. I would have – for Drew, we've had this conversation. I don't want to have it again. But I would have been more inclined to do something like that for Drew than for Danilo. That's all. And so I'm fine with them standing – I'm fine with them holding the line. They have shown restraint – everybody, including myself, wanted them to go get Westbrook. Everybody but Alf. I think that they made the right decision.
One more thing, but this obviously shows that they know something about 2021, right? And I'm not even talking about Giannis here. I think they've got some.
I've been saying that all along.
This is what I'm saying is that this just goes into the pattern, right? It's another indicator that they're pretty confident about 2021. They don't want to even.
They're not going to give up the space. They're not going to touch the space because they know that players want to play down there now. Okay, the way it was put to me was, because I'm always even the Draymond pursuit, which was real. I'm like, all these guys they could have just drafted. Draymond was there for them to draft. I wrote a column on draft night. They should have drafted Draymond. Tim Hardaway wanted to draft Draymond, but Pat didn't think he was in shape. Okay, they could have drafted Jimmy. They traded up to take Norris Cole instead. All right, or they jumped the
2
spot
rings.
to take. Oh yeah, fine. Okay, so but they did all these things, and it's like, well, okay, so then you end up paying maxes for guys that you could have just had in the draft. And the way it was put to me was, yeah, but they get the player after somebody else has to waste the time developing them and see if they're any good. And then Pat knows he'll probably get the guy later. And that's basically the whole idea here. And so, yeah, they know that they're going to get somebody in 2021. I don't know if it's going to be Oladipo. I don't know if it's going to be Beal. I don't know if it's going to be Giannis. I don't know. Maybe the things don't work out with Kawhi, although I think they will. But there's going to be players there, and they want to keep the cap space open, and we're going to close the episode. So we've got more episodes to come to in the next couple of days. I do want to get to farewells on JJ and Dion, and we'll have some fun with it, and Justise as well. Obviously, we did a little of that last night. But that's it for today's 5 on the Floor.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Regional Sports Network.